what I set out to do, and this is actually the beginning point to my entire life and the end point in terms of my entire life. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories about people. One of the first people I met was a little girl who stood in my path as I was walking around the village one day, and barefoot, sun-bleached little rag of a dress on her skinny body, but she stood there very proud and very bravely in front of me and said, "I want to sing you a song." I said, "That would be wonderful, thank you." And she sang it, and she also told me it was a song she had made up herself. And it was a song actually about her mother and her father and how much she loved her. And at the end of the song, the little hand came. And it went toy. Now, in the course of that first visit to the village, I think Veronica must have accosted me about 20 times. Every time with a different song. Every time the little hand came out. And then one day I was in my house writing, and I heard a very urgent knock on the front door. Now my front door was frosted glass panel, so the moment I stuck my head out of my room and looked down the corridor, I could see, I knew exactly who I knew who it was. And I was very angry. And I went to the door and I pulled it open and I said, "Now listen, Veronica, I've had enough. I've given you enough, and I like your songs, but that's enough now. You stop, okay?" And as I started to close the door, a little foot came and stopped me. I surrendered. Veronica has been with me all the time. She is a symbol, but flesh and blood, for God's sake, but she's kind of a symbol, a very profound symbol of my country and its people, of what is happening to my society. I mean, in Valley Song, she was an expression of the hope we all felt in those incredibly euphoric years after Nelson Mandela came out of jail, and we had the chance to fashion a democracy that would live up to, you know, the dream that would embody all of those values that had been denied us under the apartheid regime. And Veronica in Valley Song is an expression of that hope and that dream. And then, tragically, we are still struggling to realize that dream. And I won't call it a losing battle, but we're certainly not winning.
Was it the hearing about the president and his response to the question of AIDS, which brought you to the direction of doing the theme around AIDS?
Well, you know, writing Valley Song, I invested myself in a statement of hope and pride and great confidence in my country. And I feel at this moment that that play by itself is half a truth. Is half a truth. That's not the whole truth. And you know, nothing so symbolizes what's going wrong with my society than what the South African AIDS epidemic.
On a personal note, I just have to acknowledge the fact that I'm a 20-year AIDS survivor. And part of my journey here in this country has been to dispel the shame and the myth, number one, that you have to die, which you don't actually. And number two, that it's something to be ashamed about. And so I want to thank you, because telling this story, just like people here in LA and in New York began to tell stories, that's what helped begin to make it possible for me to believe at 19 that I could live. So you're really doing a tremendous service. So I wanted to first just say that. So thank you.
Thank you. A big joke is the so-called guilty liberal conscience. And you know, I come from a country and from a minority in that country that has made most probably in the history of the Western world the greatest reason for having a guilty conscience. Having a guilt because we stole, we robbed, and we are still pillaging Africa. But the net result is, as I began to understand the way my country worked, as I began to understand the privileges and the opportunities that came to me simply by virtue of me having a white skin, and not by virtue of any particular effort on my side or labor, they just come to you. As I began to understand all that, it was an occasion for profound guilt, profound sense of guilt, and that underlies my work all the time.
You, fellow, but for you, we don't know about apartheid in South Africa. But for your plays, coming here and teaching us, that's how we started getting hip to them. There were people that are political that understood, but those of us who were just running around doing whatever came into your plays, and all of a sudden we were changed human beings, because you took us into the belly of the beast with these plays and united us with our African brothers in the struggle for humanity.
There's no way that we can do what we just did without you, without the right.
You could have done what you did without Stephen Sachs. Stephen Sachs could have done what you did without my computer and my printer. You see, the fantastic thing about theatre, and it's what makes it so incredibly rich, is that it is a collaborative art. It is, and this is what you got when you watched the stage today, an ensemble of 5 actors who subordinated themselves, their craft, their everything, to something bigger than themselves, which is the statement about a character, the character that they played, Veronica, Alfred, the 2 boys, Asmaniti and Opa. You know, it's a collaborative art, and that's its richness. And then you, sitting here, you can't have the event we had this afternoon if you hadn't been here. You know, I've had enough run-throughs on a stage as an actor with an empty audience and so on, and you try and get it up.